Okay, as usual, I've put all the code at the start here. So if you're looking for a quick and easy solution, here it is. If you want to pause the video and analyze it yourself, please feel free. So I've written a function, and the function prompts the user to enter their phone number. And then from there, it will test for two things. It will test the data to make sure that it is in fact integers and it's not some other type of data like a string or a Boolean value. It will also test to make sure that the number is 7 digits long. So I've gone for an American cell phone number in this case, but you can make it into whatever you like. So if you run the code and we put, for example, 1, we get not a valid number, try again. If we enter a string, we get wrong data type, try again. And if we enter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, our program executes with no errors. So everything's working perfectly. If you would like to stick around and break this down in detail, please feel free to do so. So let's get started. So I'm going to say define, we'll say get phone number. And as usual, it's always best practice to use verbs in your function names because that gives other people the best idea of what your function does. And in this function, we're not going to take any arguments. You could, for example, put number and then have, for example, number defined later in your main function. But just for the sake of today, we're going to put the input prompt inside the function. So we're going to say valid phone number equals false. And we're going to say while not valid phone number. So this is going to continually prompt the user until they enter a valid phone number. From there, we're going to say try. And as discussed in a previous video, the try block is going to try to validate the data as per conditions that we specify. So we're going to say number equals int input. We'll say please enter your number. So the try block is going to try to validate the data as an integer, which works nicely for us. Now at this point in time, I just want to show you something that I've always thought is kind of interesting. So if we run this code, we get line 9, get phone number, indentation error, unexpected unindent. However, if we come down to line 9, we find that there is no indentation error. What is going on here? Well, the reason that we're getting this particular error message is because when you use try, you must use except as well. And sure enough, if we come down here and we put except value error, for now I'm just going to put, for example, print wow, we should find that that error is now gone. So I am actually not 100% sure why it's an indentation error. My guess is that Python is maybe assuming that except is written somewhere, but it's not indented properly to align with the try block. But maybe this is not the case because interestingly enough, if you take except and you put the wrong indentation and then you run it again, you actually get a syntax error, not an indentation error. So if anybody does happen to know why that particular error message comes up, I'd really like to know. But of course, the value error becomes the wrong syntax once you've put the wrong indentation anyways. So, okay, so let's run that. And if we put a number in here, sure enough, we're not getting any error messages. If we type the wrong type of data, like a string, we get wow. So at this point in time, this is working quite nicely. Now, just before we go any further, I am actually going to put down here return number, because that's what we want in the end, right? That's the point of the whole thing. All right, so one other thing I just want to mention at this point. You must have the except part of the code included, right? But what if you don't want to print anything? What if you have to put this in here, but you actually don't want it to really do anything? There's a really easy solution to this, and I'm just going to put this in now, which is pass. Pass acts as a placeholder in instances where you must have something written. So you could put pass. Let's actually change this and we'll just say invalid data type. Feel free to put what you like. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to test the number and make sure that it is 7 digits long. So we can do this using len, right? The len function. We know that len will count strings. You know, if we put len and then we put a string, it will return the number of letters in that string. But will it work for an integer? Let's find out. We'll say if len of number is exactly equal to 7, then we'll say valid phone number equals true. Now let's run that and check it. 7, and we get an error. Type error. Object of type int has no len. Len will work for strings. It will not work with integers. So how do we get around this issue? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that input from the user. I'm going to temporarily change it back to a string, count the number of letters or figures in the string, and then I'm going to use that to validate the data here. So let's do that by saying length of number is equal to string number. And then here we can go length of number. Just get rid of that. Now let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And sure enough, the code executes without any errors. So this is working quite nicely. And just so that we are super clear about this, we'll just put print and we'll say like, thank you. Because you're totally welcome, computer. Okay, so just on a quick side note, this code here works really well because it will kind of validate the data, but it doesn't actually change the original data itself. And to prove this, I'm going to very quickly run some code down here that I prepared earlier. So what I've got is I've got my phone number equals get phone number. So the get phone number function will be called, and then the return value of that function is being assigned to this variable here. So put more simply, my phone number is going to equal the phone number entered by the user. From there, we've got print is instance. So the is instance code here is going to take 2 parameters. The first parameter is the data that you want to check. Okay, so in this instance, we've got this variable here, which is our phone number. So we are checking the phone number to see what type of data it is. That's the second parameter here. So in this case, we've got int. So if the return value of our get phone number function being called is an integer, here on the terminal, we're going to get true. So, and sure enough, we get true, which means that the number here is not being altered by this code here, but it is checking as a kind of data validation. If we change this to string, we should subsequently get false on the terminal. And we do. Okay, so just at the end here, I'm going to put a few little extra finishing touches, I guess. So I've got if length, and we're testing the number of digits in the number. If it's not the correct number of digits, let's say, for example, invalid, we'll say number. Try again. Or you can put, for example, must be 7 digits or whatever you'd like it to be. Okay. So if we put the wrong data type, we get invalid data type. If we put a number, but it is not 7 digits long, we get invalid number. Try again. Just some little things like that you can add. So, all right, I think that's everything I want to cover. So thank you very much.